إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Alhamdulillah, we've been doing the Fiqh of Taharah for a few weeks, and we started the rules of menstruation from last week. And we should have Sheikh Rami sitting here, and I should be sitting there. But anyway, I have his permission to teach. So as is my habit, I like to ask questions. Number one, to see if you retained information from last week, and secondly, as a form of revision. So what were the 5 numbers to remember, and who remembers them? The 5 numbers in a menstruation, who remembers them? We don't have anyone live yet.
7, 10, 15, 17.
3, 10, 15.
3, 10, 15.
70. 55.
55 is the last number.
40.
Okay, so let's try and remember what they mean as well. The 3 is the minimum number of days of menstruation. Then below this is not menstruation, okay? And then 10 is the maximum number of days of menstruation. Remember, so 3 and 10. And what were the other 3 madhabs? This was Hanafi, 3 and 10. And the others were 1 and 15. So they have a wider range. The minimum number of days of menstruation, the Shafi'i madhab, is 1 day, 24 hours. 1 day and 1 night, 24. And then the maximum is 15 days. So beyond the 15 days will be what? Istihada. We did that last week. Right, and the rules of istihada are different. So in the Hanafi madhab, 3, 10, then 15 is the minimum number of days of tuhur. The minimum number of days that will be considered the tuhur days, the clean days. So if someone has a menstruation within the 15 days, it will not be considered menstruation, it will be considered what? Istihada, right? And the rules of istihada will come to today, inshallah. Then we said the minimum age for menstruation is 9 years, right? And the maximum age for menstruation is different according to the madhahib. So Imam al-Shafi'i does not have an upper limit. So according to him, a woman can keep on menstruating and there's no upper limit. Imam Abu Hanifa set the limit at 55 years. Now remember, all of these ages and times are lunar calendars. So if you're going to look at a solar calendar, it's approximately 53 years and some months. Imam Malik said 50 years, and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal said 70 years. But there are 5 numbers we want to remember, so we try and repeat them. Imam in the Hanafi madhab, it is 3, 10, 15, 9, 55. Okay, and in Shafi'i madhab? Shafi'i madhab, what was it?
1.
15. 15 again. So we have to do minimum number of days, maximum number of days, minimum number of days of pure days, minimum age, maximum age. So 1, 15, 15, 9, no upper limit. Okay, can you remember that? Okay. So that is, just revising what were the, definition of the ages and the durations and the tuhur and the maximum age. The next thing we should cover is, can menstruation happen during pregnancy? So a woman becomes pregnant, she knows that she is pregnant, and now she starts to have bleeding. And remember that when we talk about menstruation, it doesn't necessarily have to be blood, but it can be any kind of discoloration of the vaginal discharge and is coming from the uterus. So for example, if a woman starts to bleed from the inner part of the vagina or the outer part of the vagina, that bleeding will not be considered menstruation. It has to be coming from the uterus. Okay? So now the woman is bleeding from her uterus and she is also pregnant. The question is, will she consider that as a menstruation or will she consider that as istihada? And again, the fuqaha had differences for that as well. So Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal said that no, a woman cannot menstruate when she is pregnant. And the other two, Imam Malik and Imam Shafi'i, said that yes, menstruation is possible. And even medically, we know that menstruation is possible. Okay?
So are they both right? Or?
You have missed a few classes, so you are joining a few things. So now you need to understand some two key principles of when I do my classes. Number one, that when we look at the fuqaha, then we say that all the fuqaha are correct. Okay. When we look at aqidah, it is only haqq and batil. It is either correct or incorrect. There is no possibility of having two correct aqidas. Okay. So when we say that the Muslims are on the haqq aqidah and the Christians are on the batil aqidah, there is no way of saying that them and us are both correct at the same time. I was in university and having a discussion with one of my classmates, and she was saying that everyone will go to Jannah. Everyone's ideology is correct. And I said, this is not logically possible. It's no way. But when we look at fiqh, what you have to understand is that the fuqaha looked at the evidence and they used different usul and gave priority over some things than other things. Then beyond that, there are different ways of looking at a hadith and deciding on the strength of a hadith. Then even the definition of the hadith differed. For example, Imam al-Shafi'i and Imam Abu Hanifa, the definition of what is a hadith is very different. Imam Abu Hanifa, for example, takes the mursal ahadith from the tabi'in or from the young sahaba, where they narrate directly from the Prophet, but they didn't hear it directly from the Prophet ﷺ. They heard it from someone in between, but they don't name that person. So it's called a mursal hadith. And Abu Hanifa took that, Imam Shafi'i didn't take that. Okay. So the usul between the fuqaha are different. So you cannot say that Imam Shafi'i was correct and Imam Abu Hanifa was incorrect. You will say that both are correct. So that's one thing. The second thing is that in the matters of fiqh, you will follow one imam. Okay? Only a person who has a high degree of ilm, who can separate out the different aspects of the evidence, he is allowed to select. A second person is allowed to choose another madhab for a necessity in a matter. And in that necessity, he will need to go to a alim and say, Alim, I am Shafi'i, I follow the Shafi'i madhab, but in this matter, I am having difficulty. What rukhsa can you give me? And he may say to you, considering your condition, you can accept the opinion of Imam Malik for this thing only. Okay? What all of the fuqaha say, even the Salafi people say that you should not just follow your desires and choose whatever you like. The proper Salafi ulama, right? We're not talking about the person who doesn't have knowledge and he sits up and makes talk and says, well, you can do whatever you like. No. You talk about the proper Salafi ulama, even they will say that you will follow one thing. Why? Because you don't have sufficient knowledge to discern hadith. You don't have knowledge about matan, about sanad. You don't know the technicalities of these things. You can't select them. All right? So the other leeway that I can give you is that, for example, in certain things, Imam al-Shafi'i has two opinions. I'll give you my own example. Imam Abu Hanifa has the opinion that the Asr is delayed until 2 shadow lengths. Okay? Everyone else, they pray 1 shadow length. Now, what am I to do? I'm in a place where the prayer time is happening in the first shadow length. Imam Abu Hanifa, in his madhab, there is a second opinion available, that you can pray in the Asr of the Shafi'i time. So there is a rukhsa there within the madhab that you can take the earlier time of Asr. Do you understand these matters now? So inshallah you won't ask again which one is correct, okay? They are all correct. What you are trying to learn from my classes, number one, respect the difference of opinion. So if you find that I am saying that a person cannot read the Quran when they are menstruating, right? But then you find someone is, you said, well, maybe there's a second opinion. Then you go and find out that Imam Malik says you can read. Now, guess what happened?
You can read.
There is not you can read, that person who is following the Maliki madhab, they can read. Do you understand that? So you respect the difference of opinion. That if someone is doing something, don't say kafir, but say that perhaps they are following a different opinion. And I can go and ask my Imam about it. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Were you going to say something?
Just for menstruation, what was the issue with it? Like, obviously, the fuqaha have said what they've said. But you being a medical specialist,
Yes.
have we any Muslim doctors who specialize in women?
Yes.
Things? Have they looked into these matters? And because from what I know,
Yeah.
the fuqaha did surveys on the people that were around,
Correct.
and to find out minimum and maximum.
Just look at the simple thing, right?
So
Is that when they said that whatever comes out from the sabilain breaks the wudu. But the woman has 3 sabil. And we know that now, right? Because of the anatomy and what we have learned, right? So the things to say is that let's take the woman who is menstruating. Medically, she is having a period. She has a period for 7 days. 10 days later, she has a period again. Medically, it is a period. But according to all of the fuqaha, it's not a period, right? It is istihada. And this is a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as a doctor, I look at everything and say that this is what it is. But does science explain why I need to make wudu for prayer? No. Right? Fiqh defines what is legally hayd and what is legally not hayd. Now you understand it now? Okay. So let's move on to, there is a complex set of discussions around the woman starts the period and then it starts off slowly. So there is some flow, then it stops. Then it's some flow and then it stops. And then there's continuous flow for 5 days, right? And then it stops. So then the question is, what constitutes the hayd and what does not constitute the hayd? And this is, complex, quite complex. So I'm just going to summarize it. And the summary is that it will be looked at what is the ada of the woman, what is natural and normal for that woman. And in general, every woman is unique. They're unique in their character and also in their system. Okay, subhanAllah. So it will be looked at, if it is normal for the woman that she starts and there nothing happens for 3 days, then she starts again, all of that period will be counted within the menstrual cycle. But you have to take what we said before, the minimum period and the maximum period. And then Aisha mentions that we considered everything as the hayd until it became white or it stopped. Okay? So you continue counting the menstrual period until the colors stop. So it becomes white and then the woman takes the ghusl at that point. Now some women will happen that they think the hayd has stopped, the discharge has become clear, they take the ghusl, and then the next day more comes out, more discharge comes out or more bleeding comes out. That will be all counted as part of the hayd, and the fuqaha have their own opinions on this matter. It's quite complex, so I will leave the individual person to ask with regards to their own situation. With regards to the recitation of the Quran, Imam al-Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, and Imam Abu Hanifa, all of them said that the recitation is not allowed. The only thing that is allowed is that if a person is reading an ayah for dhikr, you want to close the door? Or? Oh, yeah, sure. If the person is, for example, they are reading Ayat al-Kursi before they go to sleep as a dhikr and not a tilawa, then it is allowed. Similarly, someone reads the last 3 surahs of the Quran, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ بِالنَّاسِ. Similarly, for adhkar and not for tilawa, it will be allowed as well. Imam Malik gives the additional dispensation that a woman who is memorizing the Quran, she is a student of the Quran, she is allowed to recite the Quran. Similarly, a teacher who is teaching the Quran, a female teacher, she is also allowed to recite the Quran. The other fuqaha did not give this. Now, this question came to me in Sydney. So this person was a Hanafi for all matters, but they are memorizing the Quran. And now they're asking, can I take the opinion of Imam Malik for my situation? Right? And the Hanafi fuqaha themselves have taken 2 stances. Where I come from, India, Pakistan, strictly not allowed. The Syrian Hanafi scholars, they say that it is possible that the person can take the Maliki opinion in this matter, but each person should present their situation to a alim who knows these things in detail. It's not a blanket dispensation. All of them agreed that the Quran cannot be touched by the woman who is menstruating. Okay, or who is in hayd. I'm not going to say menstruation anymore because that's a legal medical term, and hayd is the fiqhi term. Okay, so we'll use that. The woman who is hayd, she is not allowed to touch the Quran. They also all agreed that if the Quran was about to burn or go into fire or get damaged in some way, that you can go because of necessity to save that. But necessity allows most things anyway, all right? So now let's take the example of the Maliki woman. She is hayd and she is reciting the Quran from memory. Okay, so how will she touch the Quran? Because even Imam Malik is saying that she's not allowed to touch the Quran. Then she will take some barrier to hold the Quran and to turn the pages. And nowadays we have it easy because we have smartphones and we have the Quran on the smartphone. And you can use the part of the screen that does not have the Quran in it to swipe through the pages. This is for the Maliki woman. The next is, can a woman be inside the masjid and she is hayd? The answer is that all four fuqaha say that that is not allowed. If the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is that when Eid came, that he ordered all of us to come, all of the women were ordered to come, and the menstruating women were told not to come to the prayer area. So they came and watched and were part of the celebration of Eid. And Eid is numbers. You want to show strength in numbers. Okay. And but they were told not to be in the prayer area. So if, for example, a woman who is a haid and she goes down to the car park, no issue with that. She uses the bathroom area in the masjid, no issue with that. The next situation is if the masjid is a passing place. So you're in a place where you have to cross the masjid to get to the market, or a woman has left her handbag and she remembers the next day her hayd started, she wants to just pick it up and go past. Will that be allowed? In general, the fuqaha have said that it is not allowed, but where there is a necessity for it, then that will be allowed. Yeah, similarly, all of these things, i'tikaf would not be allowed when the woman is doing hayd. Okay. All of them agree that the prayer is not allowed when the person is hayd. That's simple, and everyone knows that. Now the question is, dhuhr time has entered. Okay, it is now 2 o'clock. You have not prayed dhuhr, all right? And the woman has started with her hayd. She went to the toilet to do wudu, and she has checked, and now. So now the question is, that dhuhr prayer, is that due on her later on or not? So when she completes, does she need to make up that dhuhr? And the fuqaha have differed on this as well. So Imam Abu Hanifa says, and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal said, Imam Malik and Imam Abu Hanifa said that prayer is not due on her. And Imam Shafi'i said that prayer is due on her. Yeah, so Imam Abu Hanifa looks at, were you legally going to pray at the end of the prayer time? So let's say Asr finishes at 2:35 today, right? 2:34, could you have prayed? She could not have prayed, so it was not due on her. Imam Shafi'i looks at the beginning of the time. So see how they look at it differently. So Imam Shafi'i said that when the time entered, could she have prayed? The answer was yes. So he says she has to make it up when the hayd is completed. All right? Now, the hayd is finished. It is 4 o'clock. Asr time has entered. And now she legally can pray. She has not taken the ghusl yet. The question is Asr due on her or not? Right? They all agree that if there is sufficient time to take the ghusl and pray, then that Asr time is due on her. So if, for example, she becomes lazy, or for whatever reason, she does not take the ghusl until Maghrib enters, She can't say, okay, I took the ghusl at Maghrib time, therefore Asr is not due on me, only Maghrib is due on me. It is counted from when she became clean, all the prayers will be due at that point. But there must be sufficient time that the person could have taken ghusl, okay? So let's say Maghrib entered at 5 o'clock, 4:58 she finds out she can pray. Not sufficient time to do ghusl, Maghrib is not due on her. What is due on her? Sorry, Asr is not due on her, but Maghrib will be, because she can't take ghusl for Maghrib, that will be due on her. That's all the rulings of prayer done, alhamdulillah, very easy. Now fasting we will do is that if the person, the hayd started while they were fasting, even if it was 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 minutes before Maghrib, that fasting is gone. That day of fasting needs to be repeated, according to everyone. Right. So now then, the difficulty here is that you have fasted the whole day, and at the very end, the fast is broken. And so people will be lazy and think they can feel something coming, but they will delay and check after Maghrib, right? And this requires that taqwa. The person should go and check when she feels, obviously, that something has come, that she should go and check, is my fasting valid or not valid? So that fast will need to be made up later on. Now, opposite scenario. It is 3:50, all right, in the morning, and the hayd has stopped. You have become clean. You have not taken the ghusl, and Fajr has entered. Will the fast be valid or not? What do you guys think? Sorry? So she has become clean before Fajr time. Fajr enters, she has not yet taken the ghusl.
If there's sufficient time, yes.
Let's say she hasn't taken the ghusl yet, and Fajr has started, so the fasting time has started, right? Yeah, she is clean technically, but she hasn't yet taken a ghusl.
Yeah.
Will that fast count or not? Sheikh Rami knows the answer. What about you guys? Should be counted, yes. The fasting has no relationship with the ghusl, okay? It only has a relationship with the cleanliness, okay? When the tahara is there, then she can fast. Same thing with janaba, okay? Someone had intercourse or he had a wet dream, he slept, he woke up when the sun rose, or he woke up at midday. More classic example, teenagers, they woke up at midday. Is the fasting valid? Yes, it's valid, because the fasting itself is separated from the prayer. The fasting itself is separated from the need for ghusl. All right? In fact, even the fuqaha go on to say that if the person did not do ghusl for the whole day, Maghrib came, he did not pray Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, the fasting is still valid. Obviously, the prayer is required, he needs to make that. So this classic example happens where the woman becomes clean at night time. She says, okay, I'm too tired, I'll wake up in the morning and do ghusl in the morning, and she wakes up late, right? So the fasting will still count for that day. Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal have a special ruling here that you need to remember. So the woman who was not fasting because of the hayd during the daytime, okay? And then during the day, she became tahir. She wasn't fasting before, but what she will do is she will do imsak. Okay? So imsak is not to eat and drink. She's not technically fasting, but she will join the other Muslims who are fasting and do imsak. Okay, did you understand that? Imam Shafi'i says that it is not required, but Imam Abu Hanifa says it is recommended. Not a must, but recommended. And even beyond that, it is recommended for the woman who is not fasting during Ramadan not to eat and drink in public. So one of the unfortunate things we see in Sydney is that you go out and the woman who is not fasting is sitting in the cafe, having her cappuccino and eating in front of everyone. And this is not recommended in the deen. All right? Okay, that's all the rules of menstruation. Very quickly, in the remaining 5 minutes, we will cover nifas and we will cover istihada, and it will not take very long. The nifas is the postnatal bleeding. All right, and in general, the postnatal bleeding starts from the delivery. The fuqaha have different technical definitions of the timing of all of this, but in terms of what to remember is that that's the bleeding that starts after childbirth. Imam Abu Hanifa sets the maximum period at 40 days, and with him is Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal as well. Imam Shafi'i and Imam Malik set 60 days. And in addition, Imam Shafi'i says that, let's say the woman menstruated she had a postnatal bleeding for 60 days. No prayer during this time. Then she became clean. 1 day later, her normal menstruation started. Then that will also be considered hayd. Imam Abu Hanifa says, no, that minimum 15 days must be there. Remember that 15 days? So the postnatal bleeding happened for 35 days. She became clean. She took the ghusl. If, let's say, 5 days later, normal menstruation started, Imam Abu Hanifa says this is not hayd, this is istihada. So what are the rules of istihada? The rules of istihada is that even though the person may medically be considered as menstruation, from a fiqhi perspective, they can pray, they can read the Quran, they can fast. What they have to do with each prayer time is that they have to make wudu if they are continuously bleeding. If, for example, the person made wudu and there was no discharge or no blood from dhuhr to asr time, she has not broken her wudu from any other reason, she does not have to repeat the wudu because the cause is not present. Okay? Two things where the fuqaha disagree on is, can she have intercourse or not? Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal says that she cannot, and everyone else says that she can. Okay? And that's where the significant difference of istihada is. Really, the woman who has istihada can do everything, except that she has to make wudu each time. And the woman who has hayd, she is restricted in all of the matters that we said before. Okay, we'll stop there. Any questions?
So usually when the menstruation finish,
Yes.
so women have a habit of like they know their days,
Yes.
3 or 5 or 7, and they don't check it. I'm assuming they don't check it like on is it in the midnight or 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. So they would usually have it in the morning or probably sometime like when they feel comfortable and they will have their ghusl. Yeah.
Yes.
So is this the right way, or even like when you say
Every woman has a ada, okay? And so she will, from her own experience, check according to her ada, okay? So her routine. So there's no one rule that will fit everyone. But in general, if it is just a general statement, a woman who knows that today in general I finish, then she should, some minutes before the prayer time is ending, she should go and check in case, let's say, she has become clean, she has enough time to do ghusl and pray for that time period, right? So before dhuhr ends, she goes and check. Before asr ends, she goes and check. In this manner.
so
We're
if
not
someone
asking
has
her
a
to wake up
habit-
at 3 o'clock in the night and check.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes.
So she doesn't fall into sin of missing Fajr or whatever, like even medically her.
Let's say she has not checked for 3 days, and yes, of course, there will be a sin for that. Yes. You know.
Not deliberately doing
Yes.
it, saying if someone make it as a routine as checking probably.
If they have their routine ada and they know that they finish at this time, then they will follow that. They didn't check before that, and
As
that's
long
fine.
as they don't prolong it or delay
Correct. Yes.
the routine, then
Correct. Yes. You all understood everything? If I ask you a question, you can answer it? Are you all clueless? Did you understand the difference between hayd? You understood the difference between hayd and istihada in general? Yes? Yes? That's the key important thing. Anyway, the videos are recorded, so, if someone got confused, they want to ask again, they can certainly do that. Jazakumullah khair.
Sure. One more question. So with the Jima, so the